Hello, and we're back for part two of the Cramps. Hold on, let me go into the...
Yeah.
Hope
everybody enjoyed the first part.
Yeah. Hello, people, and welcome to part two. This is episode 43 of the Rockshow, and this is part two of the Cramps. And we got Rock and Mike here. Where did we left off in the last episode?
Basically, it was like 1978, and they still didn't have a record deal.
Yeah,
okay.
They're still hunting that record deal.
They're hunting that record deal, and they're popular in the live circuit, playing all over the place. But they just can't. They're doing demos everywhere. People are interested, but just no real record deal.
No real record. Did at this point did they at least release a single or anything like that? Have
not
they
yet.
released anything?
No,
nothing.
not
So,
yet.
All right,
not yet. It's coming.
Okay,
it's coming. But I mean, they should have. They've had a lot of people interested, but just nobody was biting. What would happen now is British guitarist Chris Spedding, would catch a gig that they did at Max's Kansas City, and offer to produce some more demos for them.
Yeah.
Remember we saw Chris Spedding with Robert Gordon?
Yeah.
The guitar player?
Yeah.
All right. Now, at that point, they had recorded with Chris Spedding, Teenage Werewolf, a song called Twist and Shout, and a song called I Ain't Nothing But a Gorehound. Great song.
I love that.
That actually ended up on like a live album later on. In a couple of years.
A lot of those demos, they did wind up in live albums later on.
Yeah, they would also be bootlegged extensively later on too, which we'll talk about. It was at this point that the Clash, was interested in them, and they actually asked them to open up at the shows that they had at the Palladium going on in late '78. Now, they jumped on that right away because they never had a chance to play in front of like 3,000 people before.
That's amazing.
That's 3,800 people was what the Palladium held.
Yeah.
Also on that same bill was Bo Diddley. Okay, so there was going to be Bo Diddley, the Cramps, and the Clash at the Palladium.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Is this the Palladium in
14th Street?
14th Street.
Yeah. I mean, this was during the right before London Calling had come out. So they remember when we did the Clash show, we were talking about the shows at the Palladium. This was them.
The Palladium was a great venue too to see a show.
It was. Now it's a fucking NYU dorm.
NYU dorm, and they still call it the Palladium.
I know they call it the Palladium dorm.
Yeah, it's
like
fucking idiots.
Now they were playing nationally a little bit at that point, and outside a show in LA that they played, they met up with Miles Copeland, whose brothers was Stuart Copeland, from the Police, and he had a record label called IRS Records.
Yep.
And in England it was called Illegal Records.
Yep.
It was all the same thing.
Yep.
And he offered an EP deal to them. An EP being an extended play.
Yeah.
And what he would give them was basically, they had two singles at that point on Vengeance Records that had just come out the same year. And they would take those two singles and add on a fifth song.
Let me ask you, was that EP called The Greatest Hits?
Greatest Hits. Yep.
So what's that? That's not an album, but that's
an EP. It was 5 songs. It was The Way I Walk, Domino, Surfing Bird. I'm forgetting one. I know there's another one in there. Surfing Bird, The Way I Walk, Domino, Human Fly. Human Fly, which is a classic song. And the fifth song that they added on was Ricky Nelson's Lonesome Town.
Yeah, Lonesome Town.
And they did like this haunting version of it. Now, IRS would sign them, and that would come out. Finally, they'd have something.
Yeah.
It was an EP. Greatest Hits, 1979. And they would go on tour in England. They would open for the Police. You had that connection there between Miles and Stuart Copeland.
Yep.
And actually, I always thought this was funny because I always hated the Police, never liked them.
Yeah.
And I always thought they were lame. And the Cramps played with them many times and had nothing but nice things to say about them.
Wow.
So, whatever. That's good, I guess. When they got to England, they really made a big splash. Nick Kent for New Musical Express praised them, and they did really well. They were drawing big crowds off that EP, and IRS offered them a real record deal at that point.
And that's where the rest is history.
The rest is history after that. Yep. Now, they had done demos with Alex Chilton earlier, and they had kind of like a handshake agreement where if they did get signed, they had promised Alex Chilton, if they could, that he would produce their material.
And he did, right?
And he did. Okay, IRS didn't have a problem with that, and they were going to record this album down at Sun Studios again, okay, where they had done the demos before.
Let me ask you a question. You ever heard them being referred as the first Psychobilly?
Psychobilly.
Where did that terminology come from? That's
I've
heard that once or twice.
Okay, that's very interesting, Rob, you asked that. Now, if you ask Poison Ivy, she'll say that they invented the term and the genre. But actually, there's a Johnny Cash song from about 6 years earlier, in the early 70s, called One Piece at a Time.
Okay.
And in the song, he's talking about how he works at a factory making cars, and he's going to get himself a Cadillac.
Yeah.
So what he's going to do is he's going to take one piece at a time. He's going to put it together at home. Okay. And he's bringing parts home in his lunchbox.
Yeah.
He's bringing shit home, and he's got a Cadillac from like 8 different years.
Wow.
8 different parts. And at the end of the song, he mentions it's like he's talking on a CB, like you hear him, and he's saying like, I'm a psychobilly cat. All right, and that to me is the first reference of that term, psychobilly.
Wow.
So I don't know. In England, that term was taken pretty seriously. There were a lot of bands that were in the Cramps. Followed in their footprints that called themselves Psychobilly. A band called the Meteors, a bunch of other bands.
That's funny.
Would take that title, I mean, it's a cool title.
Yeah, Psychobilly.
So, Alex Chilton would produce an album for them, okay? And they would work on it all through 1979. And it would be called Songs the Lord Taught Us when it came out. Now, there was some problems with this album when they were making it.
Oh, yeah.
Chilton was a perfectionist, but he was also a serious fucking drunk. All right? So a lot of times he was like wasted when they were supposed to be doing things. They'd have to wake him up or whatever. And then when it got to actually mixing the album, nobody wanted to work with them. They were just like... Nobody would work with them to make the final mix.
Why?
And they just didn't. They were like, listen, this is all noise. This is all fuzz. You suck. And it's. I mean, it was hell. Okay, I can't imagine what that must have been like for them. But finally, in early 1980, this album would come out, and it would have. It's an amazing album. You have Sunglasses After Dark.
Oh, that's a great song.
Garbage Man. The Mad Daddy
song.
would be on there, which would be the tribute to Pete Myers, the Mad Daddy DJ. A song called I'm Cramped. A song called TV Set. I mean, this was just like an amazing fucking.
Garbage Man is a fucking great fucking song. And TV Set is a great song.
You ain't no punk, you punk.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it's like amazing. All right. Now, IRS would promote them a little bit during this, and they would put them on tour with the Buzzcocks, Iggy Pop, the Clash, and also the Police.
Look at that lineup. Just think with that lineup. That's like, you look at that lineup. It's like that's an amazing lineup. Think of what you just say.
Yeah. Imagine seeing Iggy and the Cramps together. I mean, please. All right. Now, there was a deal with A&M Records that IRS was going to basically kind of allow them to promote the album for them. And A&M didn't do a great job with it. They basically didn't know how to categorize them.
No.
Okay? Didn't know how to promote them. So the album was made, but nobody heard about it.
Yeah.
Okay? The Cramps have an album, nobody knew. That's the
knew.
problem. Okay? So by March of 1980, they had to go back to touring big time again. And they ended up in the UK, where they were always popular. They always did very well there. And they got some gigs with 999, XTC, and some other bands. They also went to France, I think, for the first time then. And they were very popular there too. There was an actual rockabilly movement going on in France.
Huge rockabilly movement.
And a lot of original rockabilly albums, guys like Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran, their albums were re-released in France. Couldn't get them in America at that time, but they were re-released in France. There's just something about the European people. They enjoy American and know American music more than us. Why is that?
I don't know. They like the hog. They like the hog. David, like in Germany, David Hasselhoff is like fucking king of punk rocking. It's amazing.
David Hasselhoff. I might give that album the album of the year for him. We're going to talk about that later.
That's what we should. We should actually have a fucking
album of the year.
We should have.
I might give it that.
We should have like 2, 3 of our best albums.
That Hasselhoff "Open Your Eyes" album was pretty fucking good. Even though it's all covers, it's great.
I'm waiting for the William Shatner Christmas album. See, watch him singing "Baby It's Cold Outside," piss off on it.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, we're gonna have another year of "Baby It's Cold Outside." People getting mad. Right. Now, Brian Gregory, the guitar player, second guitar player in the band, was very interested in this point in the occult. There would be lots of photo shoots of them with carrying like bones and weird shit, and he was involved with a lot of occult activities. He was also having a very bad heroin addiction. Okay, he was paranoid, and he hated touring. Brian Gregory absolutely hated touring. He was afraid of going to Europe. He didn't trust nobody, whatever, Now, he felt also that they weren't doing enough as a band to be bigger. He wanted to be a superstar. He thought he was Brian Jones.
So you know what, the Cramps
from the Stones.
The Cramps were good, but they never really had super commercial. They had somewhat of commercial.
You know what?
Success.
They had a little bit of commercial success in the late '80s, early '90s, and that was about it. But they didn't care.
I'm gonna bring something up there because they did two very unique things. You know, the first time I saw the Cramps on TV, once in 1994, and they were on late night with.
Letterman?
No, with
Conan O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
And you know what songs they did on Conan O'Brien when they were on?
Was it Ultra Twist or something?
Ultra Twist.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing that.
Another weird appearance that I learned today about it. Do you know they were in Beverly Hills 902?
Yes.
10?
Yes.
And they did 2 songs.
I remember that episode.
They did Strange
and
Love
I hated that show, but I heard the Cramps were coming on, and they did. That was a good 15 years later.
And here's another. Yeah. They also did a song for Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
In '85.
Right. The song Surfing Dead.
Surfing Dead.
Absolutely.
A great song.
Okay. Now, what was happening with Brian Gregory is they were starting to go in kind of different directions at this point. Brian became more interested in bands like Public Image Limited and up-and-coming punk and new wave bands than he did with rockabilly.
Yeah, he was ready to. He wanted to be a star, like you said.
Well, he wanted to be a star, and he felt that the Cramps were not the vehicle to do that. Now, but he would do things in a real shitty, shady kind of way. Okay, because once they got back to the States, they had a tour lined up, a short tour. And then I believe they were going to head somewhere else after that. And he left them in the middle of the night and disappeared off the face of the fucking earth.
Yeah.
Okay. People thought he died. People thought he went to Mars. Nobody knew where the fuck he went.
Okay? That's another conspiracy. Yeah. Where did he go?
Yeah, where did he go for those years? He would pop up later on, but they were scrambling for a guitarist at that point. So they ended up with a girl named Julian Hecklinger, who was in a New York City band called The Mad, a punk band called The Mad, and she took the name Grind Snatch.
That's great.
Okay, as a guitar player. She only did 10 gigs. Okay, and basically her whole thing was. If you see the film Erg, A Music War, which has a lot of bands in it that IRS was involved with. The section with the Cramps, she's on stage. So it's her only little document as being in the Cramps. IRS would release some singles later on at that point, including Drug Train, which is a great song.
Great song, Drug Train.
And they would come back to New York City to realize this is not going to work out. Okay. Actually, when they got back to New York City, they found out they were evicted. Okay. And
who was paying their rent?
I don't know. Either they weren't paying it or they just lost the apartment somehow.
Wow.
Okay. And they said, fuck it, we're leaving here. We're going to move to L.A. So they had a 1980 Grand Marquis, Lux Interior painted California or bust on the fucking car, and they left. They left New York forever. Okay. And, they were tired of coming back from England and then playing little places like CBGB's or Max's or Trenton City Gardens or little fucking Mug Club or whatever.
They want to play bigger places.
They had, they were trying to make it. They just knew that it wasn't going to happen in New York at that point. The scene changed. Yeah. Okay, a little bit, and it wasn't going to happen. But in LA, they figured they'd have more space. They could do things.
It was weird because it was like you had the whole punk, rock and roll. Then you got like the glam rock that really started taking off, and at the same time,
that was a few years away.
You also got disco in the background, like all that disco, all that other shit that was going on. And then for some reason, you also got the immersion of what is called rap was starting to come up. All this stuff is starting to come up, like in the '80s, early '80s, and like the way the music is changing, and then the videos came out.
Yeah, I mean,
it was very weird.
The Cramps. I wouldn't say they had anything to do with rap or disco.
They were the whole thing. I mean, this is the way music was changing in New York. Because there was a lot. There was disco. There was club for disco. There was club for. It got to a point in New York that almost alienated the punk scene, and they had to go to like Coney Island High, CBD. They couldn't go to like these other clubs. Right. Even to the Palladium changed to that too.
Palladium was gone.
But the Palladium started having more like other stuff especially when they came back. It was more like a hip hop thing. Yeah. It was weird the way that changed.
True. LA has a certain decadence about it. It's kind of like under the surface, and they were attracted to that. When they got to LA, they had befriended a band called the Gun Club. They knew these guys before, but when they got out to LA, they became closer with guitarist Brian Tristan. Yeah. Brian was a great guitar player. He is a great guitar player in the Gun Club. But they weren't going to have another Brian in the band, so they had to change his name. All right, and he would be Kid Congo Powers.
Kid Congo Powers, yes.
Right. And his debut gig would be December 14th, 1981 in London. And this came after a months-long baptism by fire, I should say, into the Cramps. They recorded an album which would become Psychedelic Jungle. They weren't playing live, they just put out this album that was heavily influenced by 60s Nuggets. If you're familiar with the Nuggets collection, Lenny Kaye from the Patti Smith band had put this collection out before he was in Patti Smith. And there was also another collection called Pebbles, which was really instrumental in reintroducing a lot of people into this like 60s garage sound that kind of like went unnoticed in the 60s. Yeah. And then reemerged in this like early 80s time, and people were very into it. Now, there was some songs that they did at this point. Goo Goo Muck, Green Fuzz, Don't Eat Stuff Off the Sidewalk.
Don't Eat Stuff Off the Sidewalk.
A song called Beautiful Gardens, which has like one of the best lines ever because it's a song about doing acid.
Is this from the Psychedelic
Jungle. It's a song about doing acid, and there's a lyric that says, "I see goats in the cheese."
Yeah. But that's I really love it. I love that.
A song called Under the Wires, where it's like a phone call over a payphone. Great fucking album. Now, Kid Congo Powers. Again, they weren't using a bass player. They went for another guitar player who would tune him down a little bit to his guitar notes down. But he was pushing the band in a different direction. It was more of this like 60s Nugget Pebbles kind of sound. It's great shit. It was a little different than Songs the Lord Taught Us.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't as rockabilly. It was a little more like, psychedelic. Okay.
You know what title that I always love that they have is Can Your Pussy Do the Dog?
Oh, that's coming. That's coming in a couple of years. I got a good story with that.
I just was reading that. I
got a good story with that.
fell off my chair. Laughing.
Yep. I mean, the Cramps were the kings of the double entendre.
Yeah.
The way you say something, it could mean two different things. All right. Now, after Psychedelic Jungle came out, they decided to play Europe. That was early 1982. And they did some shows with the Meteors, which was, they called themselves Psychobilly.
Yeah.
Okay, they were a Psychobilly band.
They were?
Yeah, check out My Daddy Was a Vampire. That's a good song. And there's a lyric in there, it's like, my mommy was a mummy. Good shit. All right. And they would, the thing with the Cramps is they would go to Europe and they would be playing these big places, treated like superstars.
Yeah.
But when they came back to America, they were playing small clubs.
Yeah.
All right. They would play like Trenton City Gardens, the Mug Club. And after that European tour, they had to go back to that. I do have to mention, though, on that European tour, they ended up doing a few gigs with Screaming Lord Sutch.
Oh, Screaming Lord Sutch.
Yeah.
That must have been big for them.
That was cool. I got to tell a little story quick. They
got that screaming and that weird kind of funk and sound.
Yeah. My buddy Rick Rivets, who passed away this year, told me a story where he went to see Screaming Lord Sutch in England in the mid-'80s. And when they did these shows with Screaming Lord Sutch, they had offered him to try to get him back to play with them in America. And when Rick went to see them, he got backstage and he said, you got to come to America. And Screaming Lord Sutch was like, yeah, the Cramps are supposed to get in touch with me. But it never happened. It never happened.
That would have been a great
That would have been awesome, yeah. He never made it to America, Screaming Lord Sutch. Early in 82. There would be some legal problems and changes and stuff that would happen here. They would file a lawsuit with IRS records and have a total falling out with Miles Copeland.
Yeah, they could have get some of those songs for a while. They had to buy a lot of their songs back because some other people.
Yeah, and they couldn't. But they were still under contract with IRS and couldn't release anything. Okay, so what happened was. Their lawsuit basically said that they were owed $10,000 from IRS. It had to do with like a pre-signing bonus or something that they never got.
They never got,
All right, and then there was something also about the original contract that they signed. They were never given the proper copies to it. It was very shady what was going on. Okay, and the band didn't give a fuck about the $10,000. No. They just wanted to get off of IRS.
Yeah.
Okay, and they were holding them back. IRS wouldn't let them go. So at that point in the early 80s, the Cramps were being heavily bootlegged.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started taping it, and when I first started getting into them in the early 80s, you would go to places in New York City on 8th Street, Revolver Records, It's Only Rock and Roll, places like that. And they would have these Cramps bootlegs, and they would have titles of these songs like you never heard of. But then when you'd buy them, it would be like, oh, you just changed the name of the song. I know this song, you know what I mean? And it was like different live locations or demos. A lot of stuff that they demoed ended up coming out there as bootlegs. It was bad, you know what I mean? So Nick Knox, unfortunately at this point, he was getting very heroin addicted. And, I'm going to say this, and I don't know how it happened exactly, but he lost his eyesight in one eye due to a heroin problem.
Holy shit.
Now, I don't want to know where he was shooting that heroin, or I don't want to know, but I know he needed an operation involving this. Kid Congo Powers also was having a drug problem as well. IRS didn't give a fuck. They were in legal battles with them, and they released Off the Bone, which was like a compilation, and also an album called Bad Music for Bad People.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Now that was the album that got me into the band. I'll show you quick. It's like this. If you can see, like this skull.
Yeah, that's the cover, right?
That's the cover of Bad Music for Bad People. I mean, I was blown away by it when it came out. I was about 15 years old, and I said, "This is fucking great."
That was a fucking great album.
Yeah. Now, November 25th through 26th in 1983, they would do a few gigs at the Peppermint Lounge in New York City, and these songs they couldn't. They were held up legally. They couldn't release any new material, but they wanted to put out a live album, so they recorded this. And this album would become "Smell of Female" eventually.
Yeah.
Okay, which is a great album.
That was one of the live albums they had.
Yeah, it's probably their best one, really.
Yeah.
Summer of '83, they would also kind of get into another semi-legal entanglement.
With who, IRS or another?
No, there was a fan club
Okay.
called the Legion of the Cramps,
Yeah.
and there was the president of that fan club, his name was Lindsay Hutton in the UK. And he was putting out information about the Cramps and telling fan club members that he was getting this information from them.
And no,
But he wasn't.
he was lying.
He was lying, okay? And, they would have never jumped on this, okay, if it wasn't for the fact that he really had no contact with them and he was acting like he did.
Yeah.
So he was, telling their fans false information, how the band was, how they could be, and whatever. And the band found out about this, and they put like a legal stop to it in England. And I mean, it's kind of a strange thing. So a lot of fans in England were turned off by that because they were getting
Fake information.
They were getting flyers and stuff with pictures of the Cramps. And it was this guy saying, "Yeah, this is coming from the Cramps," but it really wasn't.
No,
All right?
no, that's awful.
Yeah, it is awful. So they put a stop to it. Now, October of '83, the legal problems with IRS would get worked out, and they would be released from the label.
Yep.
And they learned something from that, where they said, "We're not going to deal with any big labels anymore."
No.
At that point, we're going to put things out on ourselves, or we're going to go with small labels. Now, if you think about it, that cut their own throat as far as being a big band.
Yeah.
But they didn't give a fuck. They knew at that point that they weren't going to be, a top 40 band. And they didn't care. I got to hand it to them. You know what I mean?
Hey, you take your chance and you do what you got to do, and you know what? It's successful sometimes.
Yeah. Now, November of '83, they would put out "Smell of Female." Poison Ivy got involved with the French label New Rose. What's that?
No, not the guy.
The New Rose label in France. Now, that album would be fantastic. It was live from the Peppermint Lounge. You had songs like "You Got Good Taste," "Call the Wig Ad." They did a theme from the Faster Pussycat Kill Kill movie. They did the theme from that. They did a version of the Count 5 Psychotic Reaction. And Rob's getting a food delivery right now. All right. Wouldn't be the rock show without that. We wouldn't be getting lumped up. What'd you get, Rob? Share with everybody.
Pork chop.
Pork chops.
I'm going to take a big bite out of it because I haven't eaten all day.
All right.
Keep going.
Okay. At this point, they would have to get a new guitar player because Kid Congo Powers would leave. They would get Mike Metcalf. Okay, he was Nick Knox's cousin, and he was actually, I think, involved with the Pagans, which was a band out in Cleveland. And his name would become Ike Knox, and he did a few shows with them.
Some of the names that they gave their guitarists is fantastic.
That's fantastic. You got to change your name, right? They would record "The Surfing Dead," which you mentioned before. That was a song that was in the movie Return of the Living Dead. If you watch that movie, it's at the ending credits.
Yep.
End of 1985, they were basically working on a new album. They were thinking about getting back in the studio. So they started recording songs for the album A Date with Elvis. And they got hooked up with Enigma Records, which was a small label. Now, early 1986.
You got the record cover.
yes, I'm going to show that in a second. Early 1986, that album would be released. And what's very interesting is literally like a week or two, I think, before the album was pressed, Ricky Nelson died.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now they were huge Ricky Nelson fans. They had recorded Lonesome Town. They were fans of his music. Do you remember how Ricky Nelson died?
No, how did he die?
He was on a private plane, and they were all freebasing coke.
Oh my God!
And they crashed into a mountain.
What the
pilot?
What's freebasing over?
They were freebasing coke. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Okay, so yeah, they dedicated the album to him. Now I have this album cover right here. I want to show you all. Okay. This is a date with Elvis. I love this album cover. Got Ivy with the little devil horns. Okay. And they had like this back cover here. Alright, this is just like iconic to me. This is when I really became like, aware of this band. And you would see that album cover in record stores. Tower Records had it, and I was just, blown away by it as a 17-year-old kid just getting out of high school. Pretty much.
Ivy looked hot in that.
Ivy looked hot, and it just was fantastic. Now, they would do this album and release it, but Ivy was playing bass on the album, and it was the first time they actually used any bass on any of their albums. They always would just, the second guitar player would just tune down a little bit, that would be their bass. But they actually had Ivy playing bass on that album. You had songs like Hot Pearl Snatch, How Far Can Too Far Go, and then the all-time classic, Can Your Pussy Do the Dog. I was in love with this band at that point. I went and I bought the t-shirt that was Poison Ivy in a cat suit, bent over, her butt sticking out. She had a tail on the suit, and it said, Can Your Pussy Do the Dog? I wore it in 12th grade and got thrown out of school that day. It was great. It was great. Oh my God.
You went to that.
I wore it to school prominently and just was like, Can your pussy do the dog? Yep. You're going home.
Wow.
Yep. Oh man.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah. I actually got thrown out another time that year for a different shirt. You want to know what it was?
What it was?
Hitler's World Tour.
Oh my God.
It was a picture of Hitler on the shirt, and on the back it had like the dates of like that he conquered different countries, and then in England it said rescheduled because he never got England. I got thrown out of school for wearing that shirt.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I can see that you walking with that.
Oh man.
People wouldn't be able to laugh at that today.
They didn't laugh then.
No.
They needed a bass player to do the tour of this album. Ivy was doing all the bass on the album. They needed a bass player, so they recruited Jennifer Dixon, who became Fur Dixon. All right, on bass guitar for the gigs. She played in Belgium, in France, in Holland. They did a tour of Europe again. It was in Munich that there was a show that Lux was jumping up and down on the stage, and he fell through. The floorboards collapsed, and he fell through the stage. And he held on to the mic, and he was singing like in the hole, okay? And he pulled himself out of the stage.
That must have looked
I wish there was some video of that,
man.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, Europe at that time in the mid-'80s was hating on America big time. The United States had just bombed the shit out of Libya. Reagan was not a popular guy.
No.
They were putting nuclear weapons in Europe to protect Europe, the Patriot missiles, all that shit. Okay, and there was protests everywhere. So some of these shows that they were going to play ended up getting canceled because of security issues and protesting.
They could have had proper security.
Right, now, there was a show after they played in Germany one day where Nick Knox and Fur actually got questioned at a checkpoint because they thought they had drugs. Now,
oh my God.
they did, okay, but they didn't get caught. All right, they basically, in Europe, in those days, if you were a pothead, it was hard to get pot.
Yeah.
Okay, but you could always get hash.
Yo, hash is way better than pot.
Yeah, well, stronger. Okay.
Oh yeah,
a little different. All right, and these, Nick and Fur were doing hash. There was some suspicion about them, but they ended up kind of getting away with it. When they went back to America, Fur Dixon would leave the band, unfortunately, before they had another tour scheduled in Australia. Now, this was where they brought in Candy Del Mar.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why did these guys have so many band chases? Because they couldn't get away with people, or with because it was always, because if you're that band, it's going to be, you're always going to be two vote down. Because Ivy and Lux are going to
think about it. If you were in a band that was making, you were putting out a lot of records, you were selling a lot of albums, you were on the radio or whatever, okay? You wouldn't leave.
Yeah, no.
You wouldn't leave, okay? You'd stay in the band. But when you're a struggling band like the Cramps, okay, there's, a lot of problems with that.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that things would come out of your own pocket that you probably were like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Okay? And, Lux and Ivy were very driven. They knew what they wanted, and you had to kind of conform, I think, to their way.
Yeah, to their way.
And if you didn't, you'd bang heads. Now, there was drugs involved in this. I mean, I don't know, okay? But, Fur would leave. They would get this girl named Connie Del Mar. Now, they had met Connie Del Mar actually earlier in a Liquor Mart parking lot in Los Angeles, okay? But she was like 17 years old and still in high school at that point. And they kept her in mind just in case, because she did play bass. Well, they called her up, and she would be the next bass player for the Cramps.
And she was good.
And she was very good. She was known for, she was a brunette, very pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, she was a little bit older at that point, and she was known for blowing a lot of bubbles, on bubblegum bubbles on stage. Okay. They had recorded an album. She went to Australia with them. Yeah. And they recorded an album called Rockin Reeling in Auckland, New Zealand.
Oh, that's a great album.
Which is
a live album.
It's a live album. I think it's probably their best live album, to be honest with you. Smell of Female is great, but it's short. Rockin' Reeling is a little bit longer, and it's basically everything from that album, from the Date with Elvis tour, basically, that they were doing. They were signed up at that point in August of 1986. That album would come out with Big Beat Records. Now, this was when I first saw them, okay? 1986, New York City. They did some shows at the Ritz. I think it was 2 shows, and I was blown away. Wow. I was like, this is like my fucking favorite band. Amazing.
My dad is watching.
Your dad's watching?
Yeah.
All right.
Give a shout out.
Mr. Rossi. Hello. Now, go ahead.
Did we get to, they had another LP. Did they release this LP? Who did they do it with, Bruce Fix?
What's that?
The LP, Bruce Fix. So they had 2 LPs.
Well, I think a Blues Fix thing was a compilation that they were involved with.
I got that as LP.
I don't know. They're not up to that yet.
But I couldn't even get the year.
No, that was like, that came out later on. Okay, they did some different songs on that. This was like around 1986.
And you saw them?
Oh yeah, I saw them and I was blown away by them. But it was after the show in New York City that they took a short hiatus.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and they started recording some demos because they thought they were going to be involved with the movie Crybaby.
Oh yeah, that was a great movie.
The John Waters film Crybaby. They were big John Waters fans, Pink Flamingos and Tape Heads and movies like that. Great movies. They released they gave them a demo of a song called High School Hellcats, I think another song, but unfortunately they weren't used. High School Hellcats was actually a song that was in the movie. I think Johnny Depp sings it.
Oh yeah?
But there's a version with the Cramps singing it that's way better. 1990 would come along and they would come out with a new album, and this would be called Stay Sick. and this would be their biggest selling album of all time.
It's a great album.
Yeah. It had the song Bikini Girls with Machine Guns on
great
it.
Song, Bikini Girls.
Yep, which was an MTV hit and was a top 40 hit in England as well as a single. I got to give you a little info. They called the album Stay Sick. Do you know why?
Why?
Because they said rock and roll was getting too safe. They were sick of stuff like We Are the World and Live Aid, and like all these bands playing like, you know, for these causes. And they were like, no, rock and roll's not supposed to be like that.
Do you have the cover of that record?
I do.
I think you should show people so they know what they're looking for when they go to the record. This is a great fucking cover.
This is Stay Sick. Okay? See it? Stay Sick. Okay, it's got Ivy right there on the cover. Got a back. Some naked Ivy. They're in drag right there. Okay. This is a fantastic album. Everybody should own this record, as far as I'm concerned. They would start getting more like commercial recognition a little bit at this point. There was a song called Bop Pills on there. They did a video for Bikini Girls with Machine Guns, which was a pretty big hit.
You know, here's something. A lot of time when they put the Cramps, they wouldn't put them on regular MTV.
120 minutes.
But they went on 120 minutes all the time. And they did a bunch of interviews for 120 minutes.
There was a famous interview they did with Dave Kendall from 120 minutes when that album came out. And you kind of, when you watch it, you could see everybody's uncomfortable with each other.
Yeah.
It's a weird interview. But they talk about the album. They talk about the new upcoming video, which would be banned by MTV, called Creature from the Black Leather Lagoon. Now, you know why it was banned? Wow. There's two scenes in that movie, in that video, where in the beginning it starts out like Lux is being born and his head is coming out of Ivy's vagina.
Oh my God.
Right? And he's like, I asked my mama how to make a monster, right? And it's like his head is coming out of like between her legs. All right. And then later on in the video, like Ivy's like sitting on his face.
Oh man, you can't do that.
Can't do that on MTV. Oh, you hear this song?
Yep.
Okay, that is Wanda Jackson, who Poison Ivy said is the greatest woman that ever menstruated. November, actually in the end of 1990, Candy and Nick quit the band. Alright, Nick was in poor health at that point. He had a bad drug problem. He had to get under control. So it was just down to Lux and Ivy at that point. 1991, they would come out with a new album with a new lineup, and it would be bass player Slim Chance and drummer Jim Sclavanos would join Lux and Ivy, and they would make Look Mom, No Head.
No Head.
And here we go. I got it right here. Look Mom, No Head. Okay. There's the back.
Let me see the back. Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, look at that, right? This picture was taken in Lux and Ivy's house in Los Angeles. They were living in the Hollywood Hills. They had like a I forget whose house it was. It was a famous, I think it was Rudolph Valentino's old mansion in the Hollywood Hills that they were living in. And this was filmed like in a hallway right there. But Look Mom, No Head, 1991, great album. And they had a new lineup, and you had songs like Dames, Booze, Chains, and Boots.
That's a great fucking song.
Okay, Two-Headed Sex Change.
Yep.
And Eyeball and My Martini. Can't beat that. Jim Sclavanos would leave after the album was released. He didn't tour that album. But they hooked up with a guy named Nicky Alexander, who used to be in the Weirdos, which was an LA punk band, and he was also in LA Guns, believe it or not.
Okay? LA Guns,
which was the band that kind of gave birth to Guns N' Roses. Axl was in that band at some point. They did a big European tour at that point. And they did some American dates in early 1992 with Reverend Horton Heat. I did see them on that tour at the Academy, which was over on like 44th Street, I believe, West Side. They would play the CBGB's 20th anniversary, in December of 1993. And they would introduce new drummer Harry Drumdini. Great name, right?
That's a wonderful name.
Yeah. They would release in 1994 a new album called Flame Job. Lux at that point was very interested in fixing cars, hot rods, things like that. So a lot of these songs were about cars, like Mean Machine, I'm Customized, the Sato County Auto Show, which is a great fucking song.
That's a great fucking song.
Sato County. They did a version of the song Route 66 on that.
You know what's funny? This almost goes back to the thing about Johnny Cash making a Cadillac.
Making a Cadillac, right? Yeah.
He's making a thing with all these cars.
They knew about that. They knew about that.
They knew what the hell they were doing.
Absolutely.
Which is great.
The album cover is great. Like Ivy's sitting down. She's got like a PVC leather outfit on with a blowtorch in her hand.
Fantastic.
Beautiful. Okay. 1994 through 95, they would tour continuously all over the world. They would be connected with Big Beat again and Epitaph Records. And in 1997, they would record Big Beat from Badsville.
Yep,
great album.
Another great album.
Yeah. They had songs like Devil Behind That Bush, It Thing Hard On, Sheena.
That's a great song.
Yeah, Sheena's in a Goth Gang, and Monkey with Your Tail. Okay, the double entendres were going.
Yeah,
okay,
great.
They love doing that. Okay, they did 100 gigs on that tour. That's a lot of shows.
They play a lot.
Okay?
The one thing about this band, they tour. I can see why now so many people came and go because you're small. Even though you're making some success, but it was tedious.
It was a grueling life, man.
Yeah.
Being a Cramp. Yeah, I mean, to be in the Cramps, it was like a hard job.
Tours.
They played South America in that tour too. I think for the first time.
How were they treated there?
Well, American music does very well. I mean, the Ramones in the '90s were doing fantastic in South America. They would play soccer stadiums, 50,000 people. They couldn't do that here.
Nah.
They couldn't do that here.
I remember when we had Paris was talking about him getting tours like $12,000 for like 4 gigs in Europe. It's like, holy shit.
American rock and roll and heavy metal and punk
in Spain.
In Europe and in South America does fantastic.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money there.
That's amazing.
And that's why they did it. You know, they weren't making money on record sales.
They were making money on tours.
They were making money on touring and T-shirts and things like that.
So I guess that's why they wanted to tour so much.
Right. And they enjoyed it.
Yep.
They enjoyed it because they like to bring the music to the masses, you know. After the 100 gigs, which included South America, Slim Chance would leave the band, the bass player. Now that would kind of be like the end of a 5.5-year period of stability.
Yeah.
All right. So
that might have been the longest.
Probably the longest. Yeah, I think it was the longest at that time.
With the same band.
Yeah. Now they would have to be on hiatus at that point while they kind of regrouped. And by June of 2001, they got some bad news, Rob. Brian Gregory died.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he died of a heart attack. Not much was known about him for 20 years. He was in some other lineups with other bands.
Yeah.
Very briefly, recorded nothing, basically. You would hear little things here and there. Nobody knew what happened to him.
No.
And he had very little, almost no contact with the band, with the Cramps. But right before he passed away, he actually had reconciled.
That's good.
You know, and he wasn't going to be in the band, but he reconciled with them, and unfortunately it happened right before he died of a heart attack.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, the summer of 2002, Lux would pop up on an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. He was a cartoon character, the lead singer in a band called the Bird Brains.
Yeah, the Bird Brains.
Okay. And it was great. It turned out the way that happened was one of the people involved with SpongeBob, one of the animators or something, was a next door neighbor to them.
Okay.
And through talking and whatever, you know, he got involved with that.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is funny. 2003, they would do for a new album. So they would come out with an album called Fiends of Dope Island.
That's a great title.
Fantastic title. And they would release this on their own Vengeance label. Yes, Fiends of Dope Island. crazy. Okay. Now,
yeah, Vintage.
They would come out.
That was their own label, right? How did
that was their own label. They would put things out over the years on that. Okay. They have a lot of rights to their own music, which is good.
Yeah.
A lot of bands don't. But this would be the first single off of Fiends from Dope Island, called Big Black Witchcraft Rock.
And look at her with see-through dress.
Yes. Ivy with the see-through outfit on. That's the whole band right there. Okay. I bought this as soon as it came out. You had songs on there, Big Black Witchcraft Rock. You had a song called Color Me Black. You had a song called Wrong Way Ticket. And a song called Dr. Fucker, MD.
Dr. Fuck, that's a great one.
And a song called Elvis Fucking Christ as well.
Yeah.
They brought in bass player Scott Chopper Franklin for that album, okay, and the following tour. They did 40 dates, an American tour right away off that. There was a gig in Chicago that they got some attention because it was extremely violent. What happened was they were playing and their stage technician got dragged into the crowd. And got fucking bloodied and beat up.
I think I remember seeing something of that like on MTV.
Yeah,
News
might have been on news.
Yeah.
Might have been. They what happened was they stopped playing, and Chopper jumped into the crowd to get the guy out. And when he did, like, he got hurt, and the other guy was still hurt. And when he pulled him up, there was like a trail of blood on the stage and everything because he was like banged up so bad. Security had done nothing. Cramps shows weren't really violent. You would get like some slam dancing and stuff, but I saw them many times and it was never like really too crazy. But something must have happened that night because they lost their shit.
Yeah, people fucking lost their mind. Maybe it was the extra nice heroin outside.
Depends on what drugs are going around, right?
Cocaine, uppers, downers,
Who knows? Now, they would tour this album for a while, but Ivy and Lux were putting together a collection of unreleased demos, live tracks, and stuff. And in 2004, this would culminate into a 2 CD collection called How to Make a Monster.
Great album.
Yeah. It's all unreleased demos, live tracks, bonus tracks. You got them doing like shit like Quick Joey Small back in '77. Great shit. They would continue touring all the way through to 2006. Now, the last time I ever saw them live, because like I said, I saw them every time they came into town.
Yeah.
I also saw them at Trenton City Gardens once or twice too as well. 2006, they would play the Limelight. And I remember it being a kind of elitist kind of show because you had to get the tickets through a weird, I'm trying to remember now. It was a weird way. You had to be part of this other website or something. And I remember doing it.
I think the reason they did that so the scalpers wouldn't buy tickets and stuff.
Maybe.
They're trying to more to get fans to buy instead of
but
that they really wanted a fan base.
I mean they played the Limelight, which was a great place to see.
Great venue, man. I've seen a lot of bands in Limelight.
That would be the last time they would ever play New York City. By the end of 2006, they were done touring. In 2000,
the last show he played was in Arizona,
something like that. The end of 2006. They also had done a European tour that year. 2007 and 2008, they would be on hiatus, basically. And then we would get the unimaginable. Okay. February 4th, 2009, Lux Interior passed away sadly. He died from when his aorta artery ruptured, and it just happened. It just happened. I mean, it wasn't due to any illness or anything like that. It wasn't a drug overdose, nothing like that. It was just something happened. His aorta ruptured, and that was the end of the Cramps.
That's the way
they went out like that.
It's amazing how they say they broke up because of the death of.
How could you have the Cramps without Lux?
Yeah, But I mean, they didn't break up. They pretty much
he died. He died, and that was it. Now it's 2019. It's been 10 years, and I was devastated when that happened.
Yeah.
That was the end of the band.
Yeah.
But Ivy has been a recluse ever since, and I guess that's understandable. Okay.
She lost the love of her life.
She lost the love of her life. They never married, as far as I know. I don't think they ever did. But they were lovers, friends,
Everything.
bandmates, everything. And, like I said in the first episode of this, the story of the Cramps is a love story.
Yep.
Between Lux and Ivy and a million fans. And I'll never forget this band. I love this music until I'm dead. Okay? This is some of the greatest rock and roll you could ever see.
It is good rock and roll.
Okay.
It is really good stuff.
It's nice when you're in a bar and there's a Cramps CD in the jukebox.
There's not too many bad songs.
No, they don't have a bad album. As far as I'm concerned, they do not have a bad album.
They might have one or two songs you might be not careful, but it's still better than most songs.
They got shit better than others.
Yeah.
But the thing is a bad Cramps song is 1,000 times better than a lot of people's stuff.
Good.
Okay? Now, I heard a rumor that Ivy became a Buddhist. I don't know if that's true. Also, there was a documentary that was being in the works not too long ago that she squashed. Apparently, she was originally for it and then squashed it. That's the rumor. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I can say is something has to be done about this band. First of all, if any band should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's this fucking band. Okay? And again, I don't give a fuck about that, but there needs to come out with a retrospective, a film.
You know what's funny? Some of the guitars and stuff that he will bash over his head is in the Hall of Fame, I'd say.
Yeah.
They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they're not in it.
They get some mention, I believe, with a few things, but they're not in it, okay? And I think that's a shame. If you could have shit like Madonna and Michael Jackson in there, you could have a fucking Cramps. All right, I'm sorry.
They were pioneers. They were the innovators of Psychobilly.
Now, one other thing I got to show you. The Cramps, and I said this in the first episode, influenced me, not just through their music, but stuff that they were into.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, there's a collection called Songs the Cramps Taught Us. All right, and there's several volumes of this. This is the first volume, okay? This is a lot of stuff that was based on covers that they did, or they would take snippets of shit, and you'd realize they got it from this rockabilly tune from 1957 or whatever, early 60s, and garage music from the 60s. There's a bunch of these, and you should get them. I mean, it's an education.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's it. There's no more Cramps after 2009, and that's a shame.
Have they released any more albums or
No.
anything that registered stuff that never got it?
Nothing.
So that's it.
Yeah.
He passed away. Everything is shut down. She's like hidden because she's like you never see her.
Yeah, you hear very, very, very little. Like I said, I heard she was a Buddhist now. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
I hope not a Buddhist, a Jerry.
He's a lousy monk anyway. But this is a band I'll always love. A week doesn't go by that I don't listen to this music.
Great stuff.
You can hear it still on the Lower East Side here. A lot of bars, 7B, International. The Cramps are on the jukebox. I know Big Lee at the Hard Swallow. He's a big Cramps fan.
Yep.
They made their mark here.
Yeah,
They made their mark in music. If you don't know a lot about this band, that's fine. Check them out. You'll be the better for it. So that's all I got for you, Rob.
I think we gave a lot of information.
This was a labor of love today. I researched this show for 5 hours to get this together.
This might be the most information. You'll get one band in the most that we've done.
Might be.
Some shows we do really quick and we get a good reaction. Hopefully you people will enjoy this one. A little bit of the history, the time and life of the Cramps.
Yeah.
One of the most underrated bands.
Now, we got a show coming up soon. We're going to do a Christmas show and a recap for 2019. You'll see that soon. And I want to thank you all for listening. And remember,
don't get drunk. Get lumped up. Have a good day. See you.
Take care, people.
Wow. We ended that just right.